The thoughts, opinions, and general overall shades thrown on High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers and not those of High at 9 News, its audience, or its advertisers. The statements made do not constitute medical, legal, or financial advice, and for advice tailored to your specific situation, please consult with a licensed professional. Welcome to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebrities and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck and Rico Lamitte, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country, and daily antics brought to you by cannabis. Coming to you live every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. That is right. It is Friday, April 25th, you guys. And today is a National Historic Marker Day today, you guys. And I don't think they're talking about Sharpies when they're talking about historic markers, Jesse, just so you know.
Dang it, you took it right out of my mouth.
I saw it, bro. I saw your mind to turn and you just weren't fast enough to the pedal, bro.
What are they talking about then?
Historic markers, bro. You don't know what a historic marker is? They're not Sharpies.
I thought Sharpie was the most historic marker.
This is why I had to make sure that Jesse knew that that's not what we were talking about today.
Are you talking about the markers on the side of the road when you're driving on the freeway and it says
like historic landmark
right here?
Yeah, historic landmark, things like that. You know what I mean? They have a lot of those in Vermont for all the covered bridges, historic landmarks, little markers.
Yeah, not the ones y'all sniffed, not the kind of markers y'all were sniffing.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
all over out here on the west on the Lewis and Clark Trail.
Morning, Dr. Mark.
Morning, how is everyone?
Amazing. It's also National, Jenny's going to love this one, it's National Hug a Plumber Day.
Nah. I don't think so.
Oh, man. No comments, huh, Rico?
I got lots of comments, so keep this party rolling.
Speaking of that, since Rico is so quiet on that, it's also National Hairball Awareness Day. Rico must have a hairball.
Hilarious.
I haven't licked any cats yet this morning.
Oh, man.
Same, I thought let me stop.
Speaking of licking cats, it's also National DNA Day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
All you cat lickers.
Stone Slade got a tan.
Yeah. Make sure you bleach your shit down. Leave no trace.
Not bleach.
And it's also National Arbor Day today, you guys. Shout out to trees. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Cats
right.
in the trees.
Yeah.
With hairballs.
I've got 2 trees to plant in my kitchen, so
I'm sorry,
let's
what?
go.
You plant trees in your kitchen, huh? That's interesting.
I
Well,
think
I've
that
got
came
2 starts that I bought at the store. Actually, I didn't buy them. I got them for free, but they're sitting in my kitchen in bags. They need.
So wait, you got them from
Are
the
these
store
weed
for
plant
free? So you
starts that
stole
you're
them?
saying that are like actual trees?
Oh, actual trees. One's an incense cedar and one's a Douglas fir.
Oh, the one's a Christmas tree.
Yeah, right.
They
See, most
cut it
people I know
down?
have two phones. Jesse got 2 trees.
Uh-huh.
I actually have 5 trees now. I've got 3 already growing. I got a sequoia and 2 maples already.
Well, speaking of Hug a Plumber Day, you're going to need one when
tall.
those sequoia roots get all into your
You saying he's gonna get backed up? Is that what you saying?
I'm just saying those roots are going to go everywhere through that yard. And
I think I'm going to keep the sequoia I'm going to turn it into a bonsai. I'm going to clip it and keep it in a pretty small pot.
Seems like a
Clip it
shame
and,
to sequoia that small.
Flip it and slip it.
Yeah, he's gonna clip
It's only
it, bro.
1 foot tall right now.
Jason, did you scoot my
you're
chair over?
Yeah, you're definitely not gonna snip it.
It's also National Zucchini Bread Day today, you guys.
I love zucchini bread. I should make
It is. You should. especially since you're here.
Oh, it's for you.
It's like the shape of that.
Yep.
Never mind.
And it's also National Telephone Day, Jenny's favorite device in the planet.
Oh, thank you.
Anyways, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms. You can look up above and down below to see exactly where we live on the internet. And we are live every Monday through Friday on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, X, Instagram, Facebook, Kick, as well as on our very own website at www.highat9news.com. So thank you all for joining us today. And we are kicking it off with the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte, the man who's been on the attack and has recently been watching my favorite show every day, The Apprentice, the White House version, all day, every day. That's right, it is the dope dad himself, Mr. Rico Lamitte.
What?
You've been catching up on my favorite show, The Apprentice, White House edition.
That's why that $100,000 makeup studio was put into the Pentagon. Okay. All right. So the U.S. National Institutes of Health, NIH, has terminated nearly 800 research projects since Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office. The cuts have been delivered at a breakneck speed, wiping out significant chunks of funding to entire scientific fields, forcing hundreds of the 30,000 plus NIH-funded scientists to halt their work, fire personnel, and shut down their laboratories after receiving notices that their research no longer effectuates agency priorities. According to Nature.com, the Trump administration began purging NIH-funded studies on topics that it deems problematic less than 50 days ago, continuously expanding its list to include research on topics ranging from COVID-19, LGBTQIA studies, women's health, and other medical tied fields that vaguely deemed as quote-unquote woke issues tied to misinformation. However, at least one major cannabis research project was launched with the NIH's blessing, fueling more rumors that maybe rescheduling is not off the table under Trump after all. Marijuana Moment's Kyle Yeager reported this morning that the University of Mississippi, the sole federally authorized grower of marijuana for research, has launched a new federally funded cannabis research center, the Resource Center for Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. What kind of name is that? In partnership with Washington State University and U.S. Pharmacopeia. Funded by the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health under the NIH, the center aims to guide researchers through the complex regulations surrounding cannabis studies, provide educational resources, and improve scientific standards. The center will focus on improving regulatory compliance, research standards, and safety data for cannabinoids. Per the article, Egyptian-born pharmacologist Mahmoud El Soli, president and laboratory director of El Soli Laboratories, who has long helmed the university's Cannabis Cultivation and Research Division, contracted by the National Institute for Drug Abuse, will be leading the cannabis regulatory guidance effort. El Soli will be joined by Robert Welch, director of the university's National Center for Cannabis Research and Education, who says the center's programming will lead efforts to make cannabis research more accessible and standardized. Although R3CR cannot change cannabis's federal Schedule I status, it aims to ease research barriers by helping the DEA registration and resource needs. The initiative reflects growing federal interest in facilitating marijuana research, despite ongoing delays and potential rescheduling by the DEA. Yeager says that the announcement about the center comes months after a National Advisory Council for Complementary and Integrative Health meeting where members approved the concept for the institute. See? They do have concepts of plans. There was no mention of how much the center costs to assemble or will cost to operate. And it comes off the heels of the DEA recently notifying the agency judge that the marijuana rescheduling process is still on hold with no future actions currently scheduled. Womp womp. The matter sits before the acting administrator, who has called cannabis a gateway drug and linked its use to psychosis. So, more confusion, uncertainty, and opaqueness about what the Trump administration's plans are concerning cannabis, but at least they've opened an awesome new lab in the real cannabis mecca and source of some of the greatest weed on earth, right, Jason? Mississippi. I'm Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News.
So I'm a little confused. Maybe Dr. Mark, maybe you can shed some light on this, because basically they're claiming that they opened a new lab, but you're saying that it's at the University of Mississippi. So to me, it doesn't sound like they opened a new lab. It sounds like they dedicated some space for the dedicated use of this. That's how it sounds.
Well, dedicating a lab, Jason, would mean you have to outfit a lab.
A new facility.
Well,
is what it sounds
NIDA
like.
is no longer the monopoly, right? So the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health is actually a different silo in the NIH. So the NIH is made up of different institutes, right?
Got it.
National Institute of Drug Abuse was the sole purpose that they were cultivating cannabis down in Mississippi, and if you wanted to get samples for a project, it had to show, not that it impacts your health in a positive way, that it's, part of the whole, drug abuse story, right? Is that, something that you have to show basically negatively impacts the human existence. So they weren't really in place to do, beneficial aspects. So the National Center for Complementary Health and Medicine is, looking at other things other than pharmaceuticals. So cannabis is one of the things that they look to fund. I actually met with the deputy director of this institute at the ICRS meeting. So the ICRS is the International Cannabinoid Research Society meeting, and at the meeting back in 2023 in Toronto, I actually met with a guy named David Shurtleff, who's the deputy director there. His message was, yes, we want to fund cannabinoid research and more to understand, less about how these things could be abused and more about how they can help, certain medical conditions. And a lot of that research, Jason, doesn't actually have to do with phytocannabinoids. It has to do with the endocannabinoid system and other compounds that act on the endocannabinoid system. So phytocannabinoids is just a small portion of it.
Got it.
But yeah, now if you go to their website, so their website is the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, you'll actually see that they have now multiple providers of cannabis, not just the group down in Mississippi, but there's a group in Pennsylvania. There's a group actually in Huntington Beach, California.
Yeah.
Irvine Labs. I don't know if you know.
Oh
Irvine
yeah, that's
Labs.
Dr. Pomelli's group.
Yeah.
That's
Dr.
my guy.
Pomelli, right.
Dr. Pomelli is amazing.
Well, the point of contact that they list here is Sean Land. I don't know if you know who Sean is.
Sean Land.
There's
I'm gonna have to go and meet him.
In Florida, there's a group in Desert Hot Springs. There's a group in Monterey, group in Arizona. So it's no longer just Ole Miss that's got kind of like the corner of this market. So these other folks, when the DEA was looking for other cannabis producers, there are now other cannabis producers. And you have to go through institutional review boards if your proposed research involves human subjects. For myself, my research here at St. Michael's does not involve proposed research with human subjects. What I found out is that my grant was indeed approved for funding.
Yay!
However, with Trump's shutdown of the NIH, those funds have been frozen, paused. There's no new funding coming out of the NIH. This is directly impacting my pocketbook.
You should be letting me know. You should be letting me know this stuff, Dr. Mark. I could probably help offer some assistance to get some stuff pushed through over there.
I'm just one of many researchers who's waiting for the NIH's pause to go away. They paused really important, probably much more important research than what I'm proposing to do. They paused very important research around cancer and AIDS that, is basically going to end up flushing millions of dollars down the toilet because you can't just stop these in the middle of the study, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to restart those studies, and that's going to cost a lot of money. And it's really the pause on the NIH that Trump and the Doge people have put on is really going to negatively impact the training of scientists and the ability for academics to do research, because they're reducing the indirect costs that we get on these grants, help pay for the janitors, the toilet paper, the flagpole, a nice lawn outside my building, you know, all those indirect.
It's the trickle-down economics effect that Rico likes to hate on.
That's right. And places, you know, like you hear about Harvard in the news lately. Harvard's the most wealthiest university in the country, and probably one of the most wealthiest ones in the world. They have a huge $1 billion endowment that they can go back to and kind of supplement where the NIH indirects are having an impact on them. But small colleges like ours, we don't have those luxuries. So I do hope that this pause goes away. I think the element of your story, Rico, is that there is now a group at the NIH who's interested in looking at the positive benefits of cannabis. That is a monumental. In fact, doesn't that right there?
That's the story.
Show that the Schedule 1 listing of cannabis inconsistent, because Schedule 1 says that there's no medical use. Well, wait a second. How could we be funding all of this research around medical use if there's no medical use, you know?
Right.
So I think what Dr. T has always said on High at 9 News is that accepted medical use means approved in clinical trials. Well, wait a second. 2 cannabis drugs have been approved, Marinol and Epidiolex. So if those are approved, how could the plant from which they're derived still be Schedule 1? It doesn't make any sense, right?
At all. Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
We're kind of used to that.
Yeah, I think there might. That's what I'm saying. I think there might be hope, even though they're talking out both sides of the fucking mouth, like always.
Such a hater.
I think this is. What's that?
Such a hater.
They do. They don't. Am I wrong?
Yeah, 100%.
Anyways, they're talking out both sides of the mouth like they always, like they always do. But I think this is a positive thing, you know, in action. If they're opening up this this brand new lab, that means they're putting money into it. There's no marker on how much they spent on this or how much they're spending on staff or anything like that. But if they're making an announcement about it, I think that's positive news.
It's huge.
Even though the rhetoric is saying the exact opposite, and even though the people that they're hiring at the DEA and in the cabinet are anti-cannabis, I think this is positive.
It is huge, bro. Huge.
Isn't RFK pro-cannabis? And
RFK is pro-cannabis. Yes, that's what I'm saying, Dr. Mark. You should be. You need to be letting me know this stuff. I can help work on some messaging for you.
Junior is pro or con of anything.
His public statements have affirmed over and over and over again that he's pro.
Thank you, Jesse. Yes, he's pro. Whether as much poo-pooing as Rico wants to do over here today,
for like
you know what I mean?
20 years he's been speaking about it.
Yeah,
you can see
it. No, it doesn't. But it doesn't matter. I'm going by what he's done so far and what he's said so far, and he folded like a cheap suit when he was asked about it. Not after he was confirmed. He said he's going to defer everything to the DEA. Those are his exact words.
He said the political expedient thing at the time, but you can't take one thing and compare it to his entire 20-year record.
Exactly.
I didn't say that, Jesse. Don't put words in my mouth. I did not say that, Jesse.
Boy,
you did kind of say that, Rico. You did kind of say that. Yeah, you did. You said you're caring only about that. You said you only care about that one statement, not what he's talked about for 20 years.
Correct.
You did say that.
I didn't fucking say that, Jason.
Oh man, rewind the tape.
Rewind the fucking tape.
Yeah.
Like, nah, don't fucking put words in my mouth. I told you about that shit before, man. Don't fucking put words in my mouth. I didn't say that.
He's got 20 years of history, not just one thing that he said. And he said this political expedient thing that you keep quoting, and it's the only thing you quote.
It's not politically expedient. He was asked about this after he was confirmed.
That's exactly what it is. And you could.
And like I said multiple times during this story, they talk out both sides of their fucking mouth. When people need to make plans and shit, that's how plans get put on hold. That's how people's money gets fucked up. When you're in a government position and people are trying to plan things out and do things according to what is put into policy, You say what
story
the
is
fuck
not
is going to
talk. The
happen.
story
You
is
don't fucking
action.
do one thing and say another thing.
And this
That's
is-
what I'm
Story is
saying.
not
And this
talk,
is how the
it's
show
it's
gets held
action.
up when you guys have that same argument once again. It's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Friday, y'all.
It's Friday. It's Friday. And on that, we're going to roll into our first commercial and we're going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, you know? And I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you know you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
Oh, yeah, we're back.
Oh, and we are back, you guys.
All right, coming up next, the highest host,
Mm-hmm.
the smallest flip-flopper,
Easy there. I don't flip flop. I slide.
Jason rubbing some CBD on his knee.
Oh, man, you
Liberal
guys.
tears
Yes.
drinking.
Yeah, liberal tears. I love some liberal tears. Shout out to
Jason
liberal
Beck.
tears. Yes. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, you guys. We made it. You know what I'm saying? Well, President Trump is urging Congress to pass banking bill before the midterms, you guys, say some Senate staffers. That's right. President Donald J. Trump has begun reaching out directly to members of Congress, urging them to pass a marijuana banking bill ahead of next year's midterm elections, according to two senior Senate staffers. The GOP staffers who spoke on condition of anonymity say the president's outreach to members of Congress began earlier this week and is part of a renewed push to get the Secure and Fair Enforcement Regulation, better known as SAFER Banking Act, or similar legislation through Congress before next November, you guys. Look at that. We got a timeline before next November. Although cannabis banking legislation hasn't been filed yet this season, it's expected to happen soon, with the co-chair of the bipartisan Congressional Cannabis Caucus saying recently that it's one of the group's top priorities. They say this isn't the first time Trump has taken a behind-the-scenes role in advocating for marijuana banking reform. The same two staffers told us back in December that he was privately encouraging lawmakers to pass the Safer Banking Act. That report was later confirmed by CNN with an article earlier this morning, in quotes, saying, after winning the election, Trump and his transition team quietly backed an unsuccessful attempt to incorporate legislation easing restrictions on banking for marijuana companies into a December continuing resolution to fund the government. That is all true. I can speak to that. While President Trump has yet to make public remarks on the matter since he became president in January, during his 2024 campaign, he made a social media post stating, in quote, as president, we will continue to focus on research to unlock the medical uses of marijuana to a Schedule III drug and work with Congress to pass common sense laws, including safe banking for state authorized companies and supporting states' rights to pass marijuana laws, like in Florida, that will work so well for their citizens, they say. Despite bipartisan support and despite being approved by the full House of Representatives on multiple occasions and the Senate Banking Committee in September of 2023, the Safe and Safer Banking Acts have stalled repeatedly in past sessions, you guys. But look at this. The boss is calling for safer banking, and I think we are going to make banking great again and make cannabis banking safer for us all. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this.
Well, damn, I mean, this is awesome. I'm remiss that Rico's not here to comment on it because I know he would have something to say.
Oh, he would have something to say about this.
We just need to be aware though that it's not totally.
You got to
Gonna
speak closer
change
to your
the-
mic, Jenny.
My mic is fucking up. I'm sorry.
You're dropping.
Yeah, Jason, make my mic work. work.
I'm sorry, I don't know what to do. Maybe.
How about now?
There we go.
There you go.
Always trying to silence the women on the show.
I
see what you're doing,
Jenny
Jason.
Beth. I apologize.
Go put your feminist hat on. We all know.
Never-ending censorship on this show.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
But it's not going to totally take away all of our banking struggles, right? Because just because we can doesn't mean that every bank is going to let us, right? When we started doing this Operation Choke Point situation where banks could take away easily people's rights to bank if you're in like porn, if you're in cannabis, if you're in guns, whatever. Banks like Chase jumped on Ford first when they were, kind of almost the pilot program for censorship in the banking world. So it's still going to kind of come down to which banks still decide they want to work with us. Now, what it will do is hopefully make it cheaper for us to bank, so I don't have to spend $2,500 to file an application just to see if I can get banked. And it will allow, the Federal Reserve possibly to insure those funds, which is going to take away some of that barrier to entry for cannabis companies, which is a definite win. However, I'm not holding my breath on anything. I appreciate that it's happening, but when it happens, we'll talk about it. And
they said next November. So what they're saying is that they want this to get passed before the primary election. Is basically the timeline that I understood when I read it. Did you get that, Jesse?
Say that again.
The timeline that they said. And here, let me scroll back so I can. Let's see. When they mentioned November, when they wants it to get it done by November, I thought they said by next November. Referring to that would be the November right before the
from now or this year.
Before next November, yeah. So that's what they're saying. They're saying that not this November, before next November. So the timeline is from now till the primaries, basically, is what they're saying in this article.
Oh yeah, I mean it would be a huge political win for them to get this done. When Democrats had the chance to do it.
I'm gonna
12 years and didn't do it.
I'm gonna predict a date that it will get passed, and I'm gonna predict that it will be on 4/20 of 2026 is when this bill will get passed. You heard it here first.
They need to do it, man. I mean, just like Jenny said, the big problem here is that because of the crackdown through the FDIC and the banks don't want to give cannabis companies accounts at all, so they charge you. Even the banks that will do it, they're going to charge you somewhere between $2,500 and $10,000 a month just to process your transactions, and that's just crazy. That puts, and that's it. We talk a lot about taxes and things, on this show, but that's a huge tax that's unseen that happens to cannabis businesses across the nation.
Oh, I see that
legal
shit.
Businesses.
Every time I try to make a deposit, we're charged a fee for putting money in the bank, like literally an actual
crazy.
deposit fee. But we're also charged to have to do a cash pickup, because then they have to take the cash to the depository and they get a check from the depository to put the check into the fucking bank, which is absolutely asinine. And an armored truck isn't cheap for those of you that haven't contracted one.
Right, and it makes sense from the bank's point of view because of the pressure that's coming through the FDIC.
They don't want our stinky weed money in there.
Yeah, they're not.
In all
supposed
fairness,
to. I mean, the
it does smell.
FDIC is telling them they literally can't, but the banks that are doing that are actually defying the orders that have come down through Operation Choke Point. So it's kind of a kudos. On one hand, it's a kudos to those banks for doing it anyways. On the other hand, they're using that to extort cannabis businesses. So
to charge erroneous fees and whatnot. Dr. Mark, this would make your research a little more easier if you had a safe banking pass, wouldn't it?
I don't know. I mean, we don't really have issues around banking. I mean, getting federal funding from the government is just frozen right now. So that unfreezing the NIH, unpausing the NIH would
that's what you need the most. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But I think, again, I've seen a little bit of chatter about this in the chat. I know that we've talked about this at High at 9. Doesn't descheduling fix safe banking?
Yeah, descheduling would automatically invoke safe banking, yes, or even safer banking or any of that. Yeah, yes.
But
so
the problem with
safe banking is just really a red herring, right?
No.
If it's chicken or the egg, like which one happens first, right? So if safe banking happened first, it would at least give you the ability to bank safely while federal
Here's-
legalization has not happened yet.
And also, too, there's more industry-wide consensus around safe banking as far as rescheduling versus descheduling and whatnot, because safe banking would not only benefit the cannabis industry, it would benefit the cryptocurrency industry, it would benefit the porn industry, all the OnlyFans chicks, it would benefit all the gun manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers. It would all been, there's a whole host of different businesses that are affected by Operation Choke Point as far as within different industries, and all of them support this legislation because they are subject to it as well, just like we are in cannabis.
Yep. That's right. Anything in fintech, anything in adult, anything in armor and weapons, and cannabis, and there's a few other industries that are targeted directly by Operation Choke.
All right. Well, you have any other final thoughts on this, Dr. Mark, before we roll into you?
No, I mean, I think it's unfair. I mean, imagine if they tried to apply this to other industries, you know, like alcohol, for example.
Oh, it's crazy. It's un-American. It's completely against being the land of the free.
Yeah.
It's a government chokehold on free business that is not illegal. And that just shouldn't be the case.
And it's not any different for the players on the hemp side either, right? I mean, I know several businesses.
They get a pass.
They're under the Farm Bill, bro. They basically operate under descheduling. They can bank. Now, there is a lot of scrutiny.
Banks will not do business with hemp companies.
That part is true.
Won't get there because they're confused, but if you talk to the right bank and they know about the Farm Bill and you get it done, they get a pass. They don't have to deal with it.
Yeah, there is banks that have certain like compliance whatnots, and you have to go through some extra application processes and whatnot. But ultimately, you can bank with no problem. You know what I'm saying? You can set up payment gateways and everything for online sales, and it's a breeze.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we all know it's the same plant.
Yeah,
right.
So that's just an artificial line in the sand.
It is.
It doesn't. Yeah, I mean, right? I mean,
it is. You're totally right, because in the definition in the CSA, it's the same definition, Dr. Mark. It's cannabis sativa L.
So what it sets up is an unlevel playing field for those two sides of the business, and that's why these two sides are constantly fighting with each other, because hemp guys can do business.
Interstate commerce, they can commence an interstate commerce, and they don't have erroneous licensing fees or erroneous taxes that they have to pay to local jurisdictions in regards with sales and excise taxes and all of that extraness.
Right, but regulated cannabis industry is basically money laundering.
Correct.
Yeah.
Same fucking thing.
Yep. That's what they say.
Yeah, that's why there is a fight. You're exactly right. That's why they're at each other's throats.
And on that, we are going to keep.
Hawaiian in the chat says that he can bank. So, yeah, I think it really depends, because I know of people who are on the hemp side and they're constantly getting yanked around. One bank closes their account, next bank says, "Oh, you know what? We're going to charge you this, $2,000 a year fee just to bank with us." They could basically extort these businesses.
If you know people like that, they need to reach out to an agriculturally focused bank. Any ag bank that is focused on agriculture will deal with them, no problem. They're just messing with the wrong banks who don't understand law.
Wrong banks. Well, on that, we're going to keep this train rolling. We're going to roll right into Dr. Mark Scialdone. He's a phenomenal researcher, probably knows about more about the plant than me and everyone else around here, because he can study it down to the tiny, tiny molecule, you guys, and tell you exactly what's in your cannabis. Coming from the great Champlain region of the Green Mountain State in Vermont, it is none other than Dr. Mark Scialdone.
Hey, thank you, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the intro. Happy Friday, everyone.
Happy Friday, man.
Having a great week.
Yeah.
Hope you got cannabis in your plans for the weekend. And hope you have nice weather wherever you're at. Today is a very interesting article that I found here that was recently published just a couple days ago, and it's on the synthesis and pharmacological characterization of novel peripheral cannabinoid 1 receptor blockers based on a tricyclic scaffold. So this has nothing to do with phytocannabinoids and cannabis and hemp. This all has to do with the receptors in the body that these compounds act on. And so this paper comes from a group in Jerusalem. Again, we all know that Israel has kind of been a leader in medicinal cannabis research, and this is just another example. Now, again, when the endocannabinoid system was discovered, we all knew how important these receptors are because we can feel immediately the effects of cannabinoids like THC on our CB1 receptors. So I think it's pretty well documented that after the discovery of the endocannabinoid system and the receptors that are associated with it, just about every pharmaceutical company on planet Earth, including researchers like Dr. Piamelli, who you mentioned earlier, Jason, started making other molecules, not phytocannabinoids, but just other molecular scaffolds that just have that lock and key fit in these receptors. And so what they've developed here in this paper, and this appeared this week in the Journal of Medicinal Chemistry, which is an American Chemical Society journal and viewed as maybe one of the highest regard in terms of peer review. So these are excruciatingly reviewed by experts in the field. And so when a paper shows up in this journal, you know it's good and the science is really solid. So I'll read you the abstract. Development of peripherally selective cannabinoid 1 receptor antagonists. Okay, let's stop there for a second. So an antagonist is a molecule that binds to a receptor and kind of like turns it off. So think of it like this, like the receptor is kind of like a switch and a compound either turn it on or turn it off. So what's known with CB1 is that is the receptor that THC binds to in the brain, right? And CB1 is mostly located in the central nervous system in the brain. CB2 receptor is peripherally located throughout the body and is part of your immune system. So those are just some terminology. So the antagonist actually keeps other molecules from agonizing that receptor. So it kind of blocks the receptor and turns it off. So we know what happens when we consume THC, right? We consume THC, often it results in so-called the munchies, right? So it stimulates appetite. In fact, that's one of the reasons why cannabis was so beneficial in the late 80s for helping patients with HIV who were dying from wasting syndrome, because the cocktail of chemicals that they were putting into their body completely decimated their appetite. And one of the things that helped them regain appetite was cannabis. And we all know that after we smoke a couple doobs that, it's In-N-Out burger looks really cool, right? It looks a lot better than before you smoke. So cannabis stimulates appetite when it agonizes it. So when it antagonizes it, right, turns that receptor off, it basically deadens the appetite or increases what's called appetite suppression. So that's why an antagonist for CB1 has been sought after as a something that can basically reduce obesity, right? Because it just decreases your hunger and decreases your craving for food. In fact, what we know is that THCV, right, it's a cousin of THC, doesn't act as an agonist like THC to turn on that receptor. It basically blocks that receptor and turns it off, right? So that's why THCV has been implicated as potentially a cannabinoid that's naturally derived that can be used as a CB1 antagonist as an anti-obesity drug. So this group over in Jerusalem, all experts in this area of obesity and metabolism. So the development of peripherally selective cannabinoid 1 receptor antagonists offers a promising strategy for obesity treatment. Here, we evaluated the efficacy of a novel tricyclic CB1 antagonist. So when they say novel, they're just making a molecule. They're making a molecule by hook or crook that fits into the receptor. Has nothing to do with the cannabis plant, has nothing to do with the phytocannabinoids. In fact, when you look at these molecules, they don't even resemble THC in the least bit, other than they have carbon and oxygen. So here they evaluated the efficacy of these novel tricyclic compounds, focusing on a compound that they call BNS-808. So our findings demonstrate that BNS-808 exhibits robust CB1 receptor antagonism with notable CBR2 selectivity. So it's basically selective to acting on CB1 as opposed to CB2. So that's cool. With minimal brain penetration. That's also cool because that's where CB1 exists that results in the psychoactivity effect of cannabinoids. And potent in vitro and in vivo efficacy. So the compound's high plasma protein binding reduces the free availability of the drug for CNS entry. So when you take this drug and it gets into your body, it basically binds to a protein in the blood that now becomes a much bigger entity for crossing the blood-brain barrier. So that binding event of the protein to the drug basically keeps it in the plasma and prevents it from crossing the blood-brain barrier. Enhancing safety and minimizing drug-drug interactions in diet-induced obese mice. So they have a test where they basically look at mice that are not transgender mice that are genetically modified to be obese just in their natural diet. They're just, again, kind of like looking at humans who are, genetically passed on those obesity traits to their offspring. So what they found is that this BNS compound, BNS-808, effectively reduced the body weight, the adiposity, the amount of adipose, which is the amount of fat, liver triglycerides. So those are similar to the triglycerides when you get your blood work done and they're looking at cholesterol and they're looking at triglycerides in your blood. So this drug basically reduces liver triglycerides and liver enzymes, supporting its peripherally mediated actions. These results highlight BNS-808 as a promising candidate for obesity treatment. Additionally, our novel library of peripherally selective CB1 antagonists proves as a strong foundation for future drug development. With further refinement, BNS-808 holds significant clinical potential to address global obesity epidemic. Well, again, this is something where that center that we were talking about when Rico was on, this National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, may want to consider doing some work with high THCV varieties, because there's a complementary medicine to something that these folks would develop as purely a drug that has nothing to do with the cannabis plant, take it through clinical trials and see, does THCV have as good an efficacy as a drug like this? A drug like this could have unwanted toxicity or could be acting on multiple targets other than just reducing obesity. So it's important for researchers to know, but I think what this really points out is how important the endocannabinoid system is, and the compounds from the plant which can act on these receptors perhaps create a safer alternative than people doing a drug discovery like this. I'm sure this group is well aware of THCV, and they've probably maybe looked at THCV in this assay, and perhaps this compound that they've developed works a lot better than THCV. They didn't mention THCV in this article, but I think this is one of the reasons why THCV has been called the race car cannabinoid or the diet cannabinoid, because antagonizing that receptor without psychoactivity is something that a lot of pharmaceutical companies would dearly love to have a drug that does that. So I thought this was an interesting paper from that point of view. Again, nothing about hemp, cannabis, or Delta-8 or HHC this week, folks. Sorry to disappoint you, but this was a very exciting piece of work, again, done offshore in Israel, not worried about whether or not the NIH is going to fund them or not. They're also connected with a small company over there that I'm sure is going to take this drug into clinical trials. So that's my story today from Vermont. Be interested in what's left of my other colleagues who want to comment on this. Any comments from the gallery here?
This is great news. You know me, Dr. Mark, I'm always a fan of you know what I'm saying, THCV.
Yeah, skinny weed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm all about the health conscious weed. You know what I'm saying?
You're just trying to be skinny, Jason.
I am skinny. At least compared to what I used to be.
Right? I'm proud of him. Now we're going to find him a wife.
He's half the Jason he used to be.
Yeah, he is. They let the farts out of him, Dr. Mark.
Now.
Yeah, actually more than half, Dr. Mark, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, you could probably put two Jasons behind Pinsky, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Lord.
Well, Pinsky, in all fairness, Pinsky has been losing some weight too. So shout out to Jason for getting his health in order too. Yeah, he's working on it.
And that baby's a great reason to do so.
What's that?
The new season of Bon Appetit. Did I catch that right?
I don't know if they're doing a new season, but they did a new episode. I'm not sure if they're doing a new season.
Did a new episode? Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's cool.
A reunion episode that was launched on 420. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Cute. I love it.
Yeah.
On the Munchies channel.
So basically I'm just going to use right now that we're talking about how svelte Jason is. Ladies, if you would like to be the future Mrs.
Funny.
Jason Beck, reach out to me. Send your resumes in. I need a headshot, height, weight, career, credit score, political affiliation, and we'll go from there.
Yes. Jenny Beth vetting the chicks.
That's funny. That's funny. That's
to be fair,
funny.
Jason gives the final word on if I can actually be in a relationship with somebody. So it's like,
yeah, I'm her relationship executor.
Right?
Alex, my picker's broken.
I like it.
Yeah. Jenny picks the worst guys. She has the worst.
So Jenny, you're gonna be Jason's dating compliance officer.
Yeah. Some of your choices weren't so compliant either, buddy.
That's yeah. And I'm Jenny Beth's relationship executor. So you know what I'm saying. She's not.
You do it for each other. That's great.
Yeah. We try to help each other out. You know what I'm saying. Make better decisions in life, like using THCV every day to make all your fat go away.
Man. Like move over Ozempic.
Yeah.
Get some THCV weed going.
Bro, how crazy would it be if all of a sudden you were just seeing commercials every day for THCV instead of Ozempic on television?
Dude, Dr. Mark, why haven't we seen a chemist do a THCV isolate?
Oh yeah, so THCV isolate exists, but they're making it in the same way that they make hemp-derived D9. They're converting CBDV in a chemical reaction into THCV.
Why don't they? I know there's growers in Northern California. I've met a couple of them, and Anthony is saying he's met one too that grow THCV weed that has like 4%.
Yeah, like Doug's Varon and stuff like that. Those varieties have a lot of THC in it, so it's kind of interesting because they have CB1 agonist, but they also have the CB1 antagonist. So you're kind of consuming both. Your cannabinoid receptors are going to get confused. Some of them are going to get turned on. Some of them are going to get turned off. If I remember correctly,
they do an extract straight from that plant, so it would actually be a plant extract that's direct.
Well, yeah, but I guess the point maybe that you're missing here, Jesse, is that contain a lot of THC. Right.
So you're losing the value on the THC is why.
So the THC and THCV are going to have competitive effects at the receptor level. And if I remember correctly, like Doug's Varon and some of the high
selectively extract that molecule, or are you going to get both regardless because they're too similar?
Yeah, you're going to get both of them in an extraction because both of them have about the same polarity. So anything that extracts one will also extract the other.
Mm.
And I don't think they're different enough in boiling points that you could
Separate
distill
them.
one from the other. So you
breeding
have to
still
use
needs to happen.
chromatography. Yeah, you'd have to use chromatography to be able to separate those. But at the end of the day, if you could make THCV isolate from chemical conversion of CBDV, that might be the way to go to make a high THCV isolate that then you could purify up by chromatography to get out all the other minor byproducts out of there. And then, put that into some fast-acting formulation because you want to get it to your brain. So you want to probably get like either a vape pen or you want to get it past the blood-brain barrier, get it into the brain where those CB1 receptors are, and then look to see if that has the same effect that this drug has. It's interesting because what they're saying here with this drug is that this drug binds to a protein which keeps it in the blood. So maybe for appetite suppression, it's not as important to get through the blood-brain barrier. So there's a lot of interesting aspects about this paper that would say, well, maybe a THCV edible, right, which is now in the blood and then gets metabolized by the same liver enzymes, is going to create a better effect for suppression of appetite. But
now,
anti-obesity is a very difficult nut to crack because, again, a lot of that is genetic. So sometimes it's difficult to make a very general statement about a drug when it really depends on the genetic makeup that you have. Some people might be more prone to the effects of the drug than others because of their genetic makeup.
Interesting. This is fascinating. And shout out to THCV, the whole MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. You know what I'm saying? And THCV for the win. I'm a big fan of THCV, and hopefully more people can get healthy. And because obesity, in all seriousness, is probably one of the biggest epidemics that all Americans are facing overall, health-wise. That they actually can fix if they work on it. And our food supply doesn't help the situation. And so we as our country overall needs to make some drastic changes to help incorporate healthy lifestyles for all Americans. And on that, we're going to roll into our next commercial, and we're going to be right back. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Mark. That won't die.
There, Jason.
Oh, yes, and we're back. Stop whatever you're doing. Make sure you smash that like button. I know we'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it, and YouTube will appreciate it. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And all of the articles that we cover on today's show, you can read directly on our website at www.high9news.com.
I just ordered the summertime strawberry salad when added steak on top here at Anna's. Make sure you do the same thing too next time you're in downtown Long Beach. Come on down and check out Anna's joint on the 400 block of Pine Street. They have amazing selection of beers, foods, and when you come down here to Anna's, you can even challenge me to a game of shuffleboard if you want to lose. Did you get that? So, next time you're in downtown Long Beach on Pine Avenue, make sure you stop by Anna's Joint on the 400 block. Not only do they have Anna's Joint, this restaurant and bar, but they also have the amazing deli next door, and then next door to that they have a very exotic flower shop. You may want to stop by and say hi.
Yes, and we are back, you guys. We are going to roll right into Mr. Jesse Barney. He's the founder of Barney Design Co., a graphic design and branding company that can help take your brand to the new plateaus. That's right. The founder of Barney Design Co. is none other than Mr. Jesse Barney.
Yes. Thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Introduction. My story comes out of Texas today, and man, they are fighting. And unfortunately, Austin is on the losing side. Texas court blocks Austin law that decriminalized small amounts of marijuana. Womp, womp, womp. A state appeals court on Thursday, yesterday, struck down an Austin law that prohibits police from citing and arresting people for carrying small amounts of marijuana. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, our favorite guy, had sued the city, arguing the ordinance, which was adopted after voters approved it in 2022. So it's been almost 3 years. It violated state law, he said. The court's decision means Paxton's lawsuit, which had previously been dismissed by a Travis County judge, will now go to trial. In the meantime, people could get cited or arrested for marijuana possession in Austin again. So if you're in Austin, watch out. You can't be as free as you were just a few days ago. In a statement, the city said it was reviewing the ruling as we evaluate our next steps. Austin Mayor Pro Tem Vanessa Fuentes said the court decision was a huge letdown. Now our police will be forced to waste time on minor marijuana cases instead of focusing on violent crimes or finding the street killer, which they deny exists. Mm-hmm. She said in a statement, once again, the state is stepping on local decisions that reflect the values Austin residents actually care about. Weed in small amounts has effectively been decriminalized in Austin since 2020. That's when police, responding to pressure from council members, agreed to stop citing people for low-level offenses. But the journey to decriminalization in Austin really began when Texas legalized hemp in 2019. Hemp and marijuana are both derived from the cannabis plant, although the latter contains a higher concentration of THC, the ingredient that gets people high, as we know. The law forced local authorities to decide whether they would buy testing equipment to determine whether a seized substance was legal hemp or illegal marijuana. Elected officials in Austin said they did not want to pay for testing. That would just be crazy for every single time they pulled people over. Prosecutors in Travis County had already said they would stop pursuing these cases. Thursday's decision came from the 15th Court of Appeals, which lawmakers created in 2023 to oversee appeals involving the state. The 3 justices on the court are conservatives who were appointed by Governor Greg Abbott, according to reporting from the Texas Tribune. Same court released an opinion last week reversing San Marcos marijuana decriminalization ordinance. Similar ordinances are in effect in Elgin, Denton, and Killeen. Ground Game Texas, the organization that helped get marijuana decriminalization on the ballot in Austin, San Marcos, and other places throughout the state, said in a statement it will continue to craft policies that respond to the court's ruling. These decisions don't change the fact that the people of Austin and San Marcos spoke with one voice, Executive Director Katina Vollinger said. It doesn't change the fact that for years, the ordinance protected residents from arrest and criminalization over low-level possession, and it definitely doesn't change our commitment to this fight. Well, it looks like we have a fight ahead of us in Texas as it continues to go down, and Mr. Paxton continues to fight and use the courts to wage war against the communities that exist in Texas. I know there's several people in Texas in our chat room, and I'm looking forward to hear what everybody has to say.
Man, this is not good news for Austin. We had Stone in here from Austin yesterday covering a municipality in Texas that, the Senate, the fact that they blocked they passed a bill to make it so that cannabis initiatives couldn't go on a ballot in the first place, so that stifling the will of the people, which I think is very, very problematic overall. Like, I have a big problem with that. And just the day before on Wednesday, I covered in San Marcos that they passed a bill to decriminalize cannabis there, and they're saying that they're not going to allow it to go through. The state's saying we're not going to allow this to go through, and it's just like you're stepping against the will of the people, and that is not a good thing, especially for you, the state of Texas. That is not a good thing, and it's not a good look for you. Nothing else, you guys?
I mean,
Texas is right next to Mexico, right? Last time I checked.
It is near there, yes. Yeah, you can access that from Mexico. California is too, though.
Yeah, it certainly is, right? Mexifornia, right?
Yep.
So, what does this do other than fuel the trap?
Exactly. Right? Exactly.
So, market.
Well, no.
Really weird.
I don't think it's about that. I think it's strictly in regards with law enforcement doesn't want to lose that ability to be able to use cannabis to create revenue streams with asset forfeiture. I think this is the whole thing, the whole bottom line issue of what is behind all of this prohibitionary practices in Texas is they don't want to lose that the smell of marijuana to be able to be used as probable cause to search people and commit asset forfeiture. That's what this is all about, in my opinion.
AKA assault black and brown people.
I mean, I know plenty of white people that have had asset forfeiture too.
I mean, the asset forfeiture portion.
White people that have had that,
1,000%. But it is a large portion of the driving while black charge. So I think that's annoying. Sorry.
The other thing it creates, I mean, you think about it, when people get busted, Jason, what happens, right? Well, there's all kinds of testing that has to happen. So those people are making money, right? There's all kinds of lawyers who basically will, represent these clients, and that those lawyers make money. So the status quo doesn't want to be upset because there's people who are making money.
You know what, Dr. Mark? You make up an interesting thing, and I mentioned this previously on the show, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it, because I was talking with a lawyer friend of mine, and I was saying, hey, you know what? If I was ever caught with a whole bunch of weed or whatnot, I would definitely say that it's all THCA, okay? And then I would argue that when they tested it to say that it's not, I think I can make a legitimate argument that test is actually invalid, because in conjunction with that test is a form of decarboxylation, which when THCA turns to THC delta 9 with decarboxylation, and so therefore they're giving a false positive on that test by testing it in the way that they test it.
Well, yeah, that's if you're basically running the risk of existing inside a loophole, right?
It's not a loophole. It's a law. It's not a THCA is not a loophole. It's not a loophole.
THCA by weight, 87.7% delta 9 THC.
No, but it's not. It's not until it becomes that. It's not until it becomes that. It's not that. You can't say that it's that. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it's because it's not that until you have decarboxylation. So therefore, it's not that.
Like, you can say that about the dankest weed in the world that's grown.
You can't call caterpillars
all THCA, right?
You can't count caterpillars as part of the butterfly population, Dr. Mark, because they're caterpillars.
And the trace amounts that are going to be converted by the small amount of heat that's introduced during the testing process is not going to give your batch enough fucking THC to get you out of jail. So there's also that. Dr. Mark, can you explain that to him? Because that was my answer to him the other day too. But can you explain the process?
I think I've said this, on High at 9 before, which is I don't think it was the intent of Congress to legalize hemp that gets you high, and high THC hemp or cannabis will get you high. I think that was I think they were snookered on rope and soap and paper and all the real industrial products that you can make from industrial hemp. Industrial hemp, they didn't realize, was just a low THCA variety that grows like a drug variety and not just right next to each other like rows of corn that are reaching for the sky and just grows a long, big bast fiber I think that industrial hemp in Canada is not high CBD cannabis, right?
I don't, Dr. Mark, I don't know. I don't know if I buy I don't think I buy the intention argument. I don't think I buy the intention. The intention of the Farm Bill was to create a rapid growth hemp industry with all aspects of it. And you know what I mean?
Well,
and
because they didn't even contemplate a route to market for CBD, because taking CBD to market in interstate commerce violates the FD&C Act.
Mm-hmm.
So
it does.
I don't think they really realize that industrial hemp contained useful amount of cannabinoids at all.
I agree. I agree with that. That's my whole reasoning why I don't believe that about that intent argument is because I believe their just whole intent was to create industry, to create jobs, to create products and see where this can go. I don't believe that there was like any. I don't believe that the intention plays into that and the fact that people are calling it a loophole. I think is just disingenuous.
I'm going to completely and 100,000% agree with Dr. Mark, and up until you got Parody Gummy, you would have as well.
No, I would not.
Let's just go ahead and acknowledge
that
your comment about
fake news.
What's going on with them not thinking about
fake news.
Stop, let me speak. Thank you. About the commerce of how to take CBD to market. If they were intending on ingestible CBD coming from hemp and that being a part of what they were legalizing, then they would have had some forethought in how to take that to market and how to regulate that and not having contradictory legislation. I'm not selling it to you, but I'm just telling you how it is. Dr. Mark is absolutely correct, Jason, because the people that got this passed were lobbying for things like hempcrete, rope, all that shit.
I'm with the rope. I actually helped the arguments on the rope thing.
Of course you did.
I did.
Of course you did. Well, we've now given Jason just enough rope to hang himself here on High at 9.
Easy. Whoa.
It's
Easy
hemp rope,
there.
though, you guys, in case you're worried.
Hemp.
It's made from hemp, yeah.
Well, that's cute. That's
I'm going to tie him
guys.
to his chair and spin him around.
Man, this just sounds like torture. Well, on that, we're going to go to a commercial, and we are going to be right back.
Oh man, your knees still bothering you, man?
Yeah, my left one, But I'll tell you what, I've been using this new CBD cream, and it works like a miracle.
CBDs? I done heard about them CBDs. I was out there on them Twitters the other day, and I heard they get you high as a kite.
Well, not this stuff. This stuff is tested. Every batch, all the way through, pharmaceutical grade, and in a GMP certified facility. So you're not going to have to worry about flying high.
GMP certified? I might have to try some of this out. Where I'm even find this?
You go directly to aimhighhemp.com and they will ship it to your door right away. Tested. It's not a name, it's a promise.
It's all entertainment A at the end of the day.
Yes, and we are back, you guys. We are going to roll right into Miss Jenny Beth Dills. She's the founder of Kind Cannabis, and she is very kind-hearted.
Aww.
Yes. She's also the founder of Justice Served, a 501c3 that can help justice-impaired individuals get their life back on track, whether that's BioTrack, the track itself, or, you know what I'm saying, the track of life. That's right, it is. The America's sweetheart, Miss Jenny Beth Dills.
Aw, thanks, Jace Beck. It's so weird being in studio, not on the golf course, but hey, I gotta do what I gotta do.
I bet.
All right, so let's talk about the bullshit. Because in the growing legal cannabis industry, there is a lesser-known crisis unfolding. Unless you're actually in the industry, then you know exactly what's unfolding. Inconsistent safety testing standards. With marijuana still illegal at the federal level, there's no single national rule book for testing cannabis products. That's left each state to set its own rules, and it's causing confusion and costly headaches. Imagine buying a cannabis product in one state that's passed all safety tests only to find out it might fail the test in a neighboring state. That's the reality right now because there's no federal oversight. States have developed a patchwork of testing requirements. They decide how cannabis labs get licensed, which contaminants to screen for, how samples are taken, and even what to do if a product is contaminated. For cannabis companies, especially those working across multiple states, the patchwork system is more than just a bureaucratic headache. It can be a serious business risk. Compliance becomes a moving target. A product that meets safety standards in State A might need costly retesting and reformulation to be sold in State B. This lack of uniformity can lead to inconsistent results, surprise recalls, and major financial losses for businesses that thought they were playing by the rules. One stark example highlights the stakes. In late 2021, Michigan regulators ordered the state's largest ever cannabis recall. Over a 3-month period, a major lab's test results were called into question. Every product tested by that lab was suddenly pulled off shelves. More than 400 dispensaries, making sure I can see it all, 400 dispensaries were affected, and an estimated $229 million worth of cannabis product had to be destroyed or retested. Cannabis businesses were blindsided. They had followed Michigan's rules and tested their products, yet they still faced massive loss and angry customers. The lab at the center of the storm, Veritas Laboratories, insisted its results were valid and even sued the state, arguing the science didn't support such a broad recall. Most of those lawsuits were later dismissed, but the incident shook the industry and exposed how fragile trust in testing can be when its standards aren't consistent. Incidents like the Michigan recall underscore a bigger issue. Cannabis is at a regulatory crossroads. Industry experts and regulators agree that businesses and consumers cannot afford to wait for federal legalization to fix these testing inconsistencies. So what's the solution? Increasingly, there are calls for more unified framework, effectively a baseline set of testing standards that all states could adapt. Under this kind of framework, every legal cannabis state would enforce some common minimum safety tests for things like mold, bacteria, pesticides, and heavy metals, with science-based limits. Labs would use more standardized methods, meaning a test in one state should be just as reliable as a test in the other. There's even discussion of states recognizing each other's test results. So a product cleared in one state could be sold in another without duplicate testing. Such uniformity, advocates say, would benefit everyone. Regulators could trust that a pass in any state means a product is safe. Labs would have clear guidelines and less guesswork, and businesses could enjoy more predictability and fewer costly recalls. And more importantly, consumers could feel confident that no matter where their cannabis comes from, it's been held to the same standard of safety. The push for consistency marks a new chapter in cannabis industry's evolution, one aimed at replacing today's testing turmoil with a more predictable and reliable system for all. So it's a fucking issue. We know it's an issue. Anybody who's in and around the issue or watches this show knows that it's an issue. So I think that I'll throw it back to you guys. But uniform testing would be a huge step in not just legalize cannabis, but legitimizing our industry and we'll be taken more seriously when we actually know how to regulate ourselves.
Well, this is the thing why you're not going to have uniform testing, because we don't have uniform standards. Right, Dr. Mark? Like, that's really at the core of, if you want to have uniform testing, you have to have uniform standards first.
That's the whole point of the article, is to establish those.
Okay, so when you say standards, what do you mean by that? What are you actually referring to?
Uniform standards, as far as like your SOPs, your protocols, everything in regards
SOPs,
with
standard operating procedures.
Yeah. So we have to have
now, to a testing lab, what a standard is, Jason, is the authentic purified material that you're buying. Sometimes they call them CRMs, which are certified reference materials.
Yep.
But those analytical standards, so for THC, THCV, CBN, CBD,
and you get those from the Drug Enforcement Administration, so then that way you can actually calibrate these machines. But none of these laboratories that are cannabis laboratories have DEA licenses, so they can't even calibrate their machines properly in the first place.
Well, no, that's just not true at all.
You sure?
So, because because the machines can be calibrated, and you don't need a DEA license to do that,
But to get a test sample from them, you do.
Say that again.
To get like with a pH meter, for an example, right? You can buy a pH testing kit that has a standard thing, so then that way you can test your meter to make sure that it's calibrated properly, so you're getting an accurate reading. And so what I'm saying is that those kits for cannabis are only issued through the DEA, and you have to have a DEA license in order to get that.
No. You're confusing a few things. So one thing that we have for testing labs to basically make sure that they're doing the tests properly and doing them right, make sure their calibration curves are right, make sure that their SOPs are right. There's something called ISO certification, right? So often when you see a testing lab, you'll see something around ISO certified, and then there's a number, usually 17025. And what that means is that on a quarterly basis, that lab is audited by a standards organization who's basically looking at the books, looking at the methods, and looking at the test results to make sure that those results are valid. The problem really exists, and the reason why it's difficult to compare results from laboratory A to results from laboratory B is, I think what you were going for is not just necessarily the standards, but procedures and protocols that they're using to get those numbers.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now that process should be standardized, but there could be a standardized process at one lab that's ISO certified because they're doing it right, and a standard certified at another lab that's ISO certified because they're doing it right. But when you try to compare the results, because they're using different methods, you're going to get different results. And I'll tell you, I think one of the major issues is that when you report potency, for example, you have to report it to a dry weight basis, right? Well, none of the product that you buy in the store is on a dry weight basis. So in order to determine the amount of cannabinoids in that flower sample, usually you're expressing that level in terms of what's called a concentration. Usually it's either a percentage, like they say, I just got 30% THC, or it's like in a milligram per gram. So it has so many milligrams per gram. So if you have the sample and the sample weighs 1 gram, you have so many milligrams of THC in that 1 gram. Well, again, the lab has to come up with a way of determining what it is on a dry weight basis. And you know that, like, when you harvest material, especially harvested plant material, can have up to 80 to 90% water, right? And when you take that material and you now dry it and cure it, and you get down to where the stems snap, now you're down at around 11 or 14% water. But don't you see, like, so when you're receiving the material and it still has that 11 or 14% or whatever, some small amount of water, not like the fresh plant, you have to basically understand what the dry weight basis is on that. The only way of determining that is typically what a lab will do is they use something called a water meter to ascertain what the water activity is. Water activity doesn't necessarily go back to bone dry cannabis, right? Dry weight basis, because there's a lot of water inside the plant cells that won't completely dry out. Even though you could smoke it and it's at that level where there's not enough moisture in there to keep you from smoking it, there's still a lot of water in there. So the labs basically have to dry out that sample. And when they dry out that sample, they're not only losing water, but they're also losing volatiles, the terpenes and whatnot. So when you get to that dry weight basis, everything that's volatile is going to be gone, including the water. But now what happens is your THC level goes up, because when you had 14% or 11% water in that bud, you still have amount of water. That's all in the denominator of that fraction, right?
Yep.
Milligrams per gram. Well, that gram includes some gram weight of water. Well, when you remove the water, guess what happens to your THC potency? It goes up, right? So until they have that process standardized from lab to lab to lab, you're absolutely right. It's problematic in comparing these two things, because the way you're getting to the THC potency is using a different method in every lab. And even though those methods within a lab can be ISO certified as, yes, they did everything right, you can't necessarily compare that to another lab that's using a different method and a different protocol. So
fascinating stuff.
Storm.
Jenny Beth, you have anything you want to throw in on this?
That was my story. I already threw my shit in there.
Okay.
And I corrected you. I feel like I've added enough.
I don't know. You didn't say adopt. You didn't pronounce adopt properly.
Mark, I have a question on that. Dr. Mark, out of everything you said, does it make sense that there should be a standard for exactly how much water weight that the water weight is verified? Because if you said that the dry weight could be somewhere from 11 to 14%, or even outside of those margins, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
That's a drastic difference in weight.
It is. And that's one of the reasons why the sampling can't be done by the farmers. So here in Vermont, they rely on producers
Mm-hmm.
basically bring in the samples. Now they can cherry pick, right? So obviously, if you're trying to get the highest potency on a batch, you're probably going to take that top cola, something from that top cola, which again is going to have different water content, different THC content than the rest of the plant. And certainly, like if you're taking a high THC result, and now you're going to put that over an entire batch of flower, well, we already know the entire batch of flower is going to have a lower THC percentage than what you're measuring at the top cola of that plant.
Right. And
So it
I
has to
guess
do
what
with
I'm
the
asking,
sampling.
what I'm asking in addition to that is if you took that top cola and you did some process to dry it out extra, wouldn't it show that there's a higher THC percentage?
Well, yeah. So exactly, it will. But in that drying, you're going to lose your terpenes. So if you're relying on that, COA to show, you got nice terpy, dank weed, well, good luck, right? Because you've dried it out and you've lost some of the terpenes.
You get all
Right,
that
the
Colorado
THC
bud that's all dry and
So is that how some of these labs are coming up with 45% THC numbers? Is they're
It's
just
crazy,
drying
right?
it
Because
out
if you think,
extra?
if something is 45% THC, take that number and divide it by 0.877, and what you'll find out is that if it's 45% THC, it's like 50% THCA, right? Because in going from THCA to THC, you lose mass, right? So
Right.
can something actually be 50% one molecule? No,
Well, if you
probably not.
dried it out like to where it was like shatter brittle,
No,
would that be possible?
Jesse, the best. If something is testing at 45%, Dr. Mark, you're going to tell me too that's a washer, or that's going to end up turning into an extract, because you're going to be able to produce so much oil or so much so much hash out of it that's going to be the only thing to do it. So anyone that has numbers like that is all total BS.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking if they're taking the sample and like extra drying it out to where the
pre-treating it, right?
flower would basically shatter by breathing on it,
Right?
because it's so dry.
Well, the same
And then
lab
it shows a
that's gonna
high
be-
number that's out of whack from what everybody else's numbers would be when the moisture content's at like 14%.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when the testing lab gets the lab, they also do like optical evaluation. So they'll look at the bud, and if they see it's completely dried out and just falls apart as soon as you touch it, they'll know that, oh, they already dried this out. In fact, the lab will do, so what they do, Jesse, is they do a water measurement on a bud to determine what the water activity, and from water activity, they could assume a percentage of water is in there. And what they do is they take the bud as is with water, and they do the HPLC measurement of it. And then what they do is they correct. So the HPLC measurement might say it's, 25% THC. But then what they have to do is they have to apply a correction factor to that measurement, because what they're measuring has got the water in there, but they know how much water is in there. So because you can't extract THC from water, if you correct for that after you've done the HPLC measurement, that's actually the appropriate way. But again, like water content is going to be a function of biomass. Like the more biomass you have, like the more dense your biomass is, well, theoretically, the more trichomes you have. The higher your percentage is, but also the higher the water. So these things kind of compound each other, because the higher you go, the more uncertainty you're introducing into the measurement.
Okay.
Fascinating stuff.
Am I confusing people? Or?
No,
that makes total sense.
Yeah.
That was my question. I mean, basically, it's just there's a huge variance, and depending on the lab, they're either going to do well at that or not. And there is no SOP that's universal, as we're talking about.
That's right. I mean, if you just compare like distillate or like vape pen results from lab to lab, pretty consistent. Where you see the inconsistency is with hash, right, which could have moisture in it, or flour. That's where you see the big inconsistencies. And the reason why they're inconsistent is because the matrix in which you're testing is able, in fact, as quick as you dry out bud, Jesse, it's really interesting. Bud will actually start absorbing water from the air. Now, as Jason points out, if you're in Colorado, where it's a very arid environment, that reabsorption of moisture may not be appreciable. But here in the East Coast, or if you're along the coast, you're going to absorb water as soon as you dry it out, because the plant material basically be hygroscopic, which is pull water out of the air.
That's very, 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 very right. I've witnessed that happen a number of times in the drying process. And like if it rains or something, all of a sudden your cannabis is much more moister and whatnot, and you have to takes a lot longer to dry during the winter versus the summer seasons.
You remember the old orange peel trick, Jason? Where I
never liked the orange peel trick. I never liked it because Chris
Brady just mentioned that in the chat.
I liked using lettuce, Dr. Mark, or
I'm more of a tortilla girl.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, I was about to say what I found that worked the best is actually flour tortilla.
Paper towel.
Flour tortilla worked the best.
Wet paper towel.
Yeah.
Flour tortillas.
Well, the interesting thing if you wet paper, you wet lettuce, you throw it in there, you could start seeing mold. The interesting thing about the orange peel is it's got limonene and citrulline. So it's kind of like a Boveda plant.
That's
reintroduced.
That's why I didn't like it, because I felt like it made all my weed more orangey terpy, and I was just like, that's not kind of the profile that I look for personally when I'm trying to source high quality and the best weed in the world.
Y'all, I've been into a licensed distro and walked in the back of and they're like, got tortillas in all the packs. I'm like, first of all,
it was Taco Tuesday when you went in there, Beth.
No, I was like, they're like, well, that's what we always did. I was like, they make these things called Integra Boost packs now. Get some. Get the tortilla the fuck out of the weed. Thank you.
Integra Boost, you should consider sponsoring the show, Integra Boost. Look at that. Well, on that, we're going to keep this train rolling right into our final story of the day. I have a pretty good one. I think you guys are going to enjoy this one, and I can't wait to hear what Dr. Mark has to say about this, because there's a crackdown. What's that, Dr. Mark?
I got to jump for a meeting at 1:30, so hurry up.
I'm going to hurry up because there's a crackdown on THC-infused hemp products can proceed in a case that's litigated as an Arizona judge rules, you guys. That's right. A judge in Arizona refused to stop a law enforcement crackdown on THC-infused toxicating hemp products planned to begin on April 24th. That's yesterday. The Hemp Industry Trade Association of Arizona, which represents 64 hemp business members, including growers, manufacturers, retailers, and others, sued State Attorney General Chris Mays and the state's 15 county attorneys April 21st in a bid to stop Mays and other authorities from taking action that could include raids on stores, steep fines, or potential prison time. Industry advocates insist federal and state law is on their side, but Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Randall Warner denied the industry's motion for a temporary restraining order in a 3 p.m. hearing. Warner said he'd explain his decision in writing and set a new hearing for the lawsuit on May 9th, according to Sully Sullivan, the Hemp Association's executive director, who attended the virtual hearing. The ruling means the 1 month of leniency for anyone selling the products is officially over. In a quote, Attorney General Mays believes the judge made the right decision in denying the TRO. Mays spokesperson Richie Taylor said in a text message, Arizona law is clear. Intoxicating THC products must be sold through licensed dispensaries, not convenience stores or smoke shops, he says. He added Mays will enforce the laws to keep Arizona communities safe and to protect the children from potent, untested substances. Mays and other law enforcement authorities said intoxicating hemp products belong only in licensed marijuana dispensaries, and the hemp industry's need for court intervention started when Mays issued a formal opinion about the products back in March of 2024, declaring the products illegal under state law, even if they're legal federally. And over a year later, on March 24th, 2025, she set an April 24th deadline to give stores time to get rid of their products, acknowledging in a letter to retailers that they may have been confused over the legality of the sales. And in a quote, they say, "Our goal is to ensure businesses have a chance to comply before enforcement begins," she said in a public statement last month. She invited other law enforcement agencies to go after the products, and people caught selling them could receive fines of $20,000 per item sold or criminal charges, she warned. Yet, not everyone agrees the state's limited number of dispensaries should be the only businesses allowed to sell the hemp products, including some state lawmakers who supported a bill this year that would have regulated intoxicating beverages with hemp-derived THC. The bill passed the Senate with bipartisan support, but died shortly after House leaders denied it a necessary committee hearing, you guys. Well, Dr. Mark, if you're still with us, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this hemp ban in Arizona.
Oh, this is, along the lines about everything else we talk about between hemp and cannabis, right? The confusion that exists not only in the marketplace with the consumer, but the confusion that exists with producers and folks who are licensed, and you gotta assume that, again, in markets like California and Colorado and maybe even Arizona too, where there's a very very present regulated cannabis industry, that there is going to be pushback on the hemp side. But, hemp is legally federally. So,
yeah,
or it's legal
exactly.
Federally, so,
exactly.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop online sales or anything.
No, it just creates a confused marketplace and even a more confused.
I wonder if a loophole for all these stores possibly could be saying that they have to order everything online and pay for everything online, and then their store could just act as a pickup location, similar to like Whole Foods and Amazon's relationship.
Something like that, yeah.
That might be a possible solution for them down there. I hope someone from Arizona is watching this. That might be a little loophole right there. You know what I mean? Cannabis loves loopholes, apparently, Dr. Mark.
I really wish you guys would stop trying to operate in loopholes. And first of all, it's very expensive to set up a business. I don't care if it is a hemp-based business or if it's an actual regulated business. Businesses are not something that are cheap and easy to structure, from your corporate structure to everything else, right? So literally doing that just so that you could take advantage of a loophole before somebody closes it is absolutely asinine.
Jenny,
and I just wish people would stop.
I have a question.
Doing it. What?
Aren't loopholes made out of hemp rope?
No, just the one that, you tie yourself to the chair with, Jason.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mark.
I'm gonna go.
Yes, sir.
Weekend,
you
guys.
take care,
Bye.
man. Stay blessed, Dr. Mark. Thank you so much. Jesse, what do you have any thoughts on this, buddy?
No, man.
No? Arizona, it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be interesting to watch, and we're going to have a front row seat.
Yeah, buddy. Rolling like a big shot. And on that, you guys.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Well, on that, yes, thank you all for joining us and getting high at 9 with us every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific and high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience and supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that is the developing cannabis industry. Huge thank you to Aim High Hemp Distribution, Tested. That's right. And Catalyst for helping us keep the lights on over here. Thank you to our correspondents for being absolutely amazing. And thank you to Cannabis Sativa L for giving us a reason to do this every day. Thank you to Cloud Media Partners, Anthony out there in the metaverse somewhere. And thank you all for tuning in and getting high at 9 with us. We are America's #1 daily cannabis news show.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah. There we go.